Welcome back, y'all. It is the discussion time for this week's Torah portion. Portion is Korah, which means Korah, which is a name. And it's the name of a guy that is feeling, let's say a little bit uppity. He is wanting to take over a little bit from Moses. Him and his buds are doing a bit of a power grab here at the beginning of this Torah portion, which is, by the way, Numbers 16:1 through the end of chapter 18.
Yes.
So, my goodness, what a Torah portion here. This is, God is not happy, first of all, at what's happening.
He gets a little bent out of shape here, and let's back this up just a little bit. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago when Miriam and Aaron, I believe privately, challenged Moses, but and God intervened. And here, interesting enough, when Korah says, "Hey, all of Israel's holy. You're taking too much on yourself."
Yeah.
He had 250 men behind him.
Yeah.
This wasn't the first time that he'd talked about this. This was something that had been discussed for a time amongst themselves until they finally got enough support that, hey, we got enough people that we can make them listen to us because we need their job.
Yeah. It's a bit of a soft coup here.
Yeah.
Well, borderline hard because he brought the guys.
Yeah.
But he didn't try to take out Moses right away, but
no, but it was a very, very strong challenge.
yeah, very much so.
And God dealt with it pretty seriously. And I wonder, well, let's talk about who Korah was.
Yeah.
He was a son of Levi.
Right.
So he had priestly duties.
Yeah, in service to the temple.
Service in the temple. He was provided for by the tithe that Levi. So what would it have benefited him to have started sharing in the duties with Moses and Aaron? Anything other than stature?
Yeah, stature, power. That's good enough for a lot of men.
Yeah, I suppose. But it wasn't like he was it wasn't like he was a nobody. He already had position.
Yeah, he was part of the lead.
Yeah. And, we were talking earlier about how the body works. Somebody's got to be a head. Somebody's got to be a foot.
Yeah, the body of Christ.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you have to work in that spot that you're put in, regardless of what it is. And there are times that sometimes you have to recognize, hey, there's a need there and it's not being filled. I'm capable of filling that need. And do so because it needs done. Maybe that turns out to be your gift. Maybe it doesn't. But here, the way God dealt with it, we can see that this seems to be pure jealousy. I'm not sure that's the right word. But
yeah, it's something. I don't know if jealousy is quite there or if it's greed or just power hungry. But they did foster kind of a rebellion, and then he took 250 princes of the assembly.
right.
It goes to the lead again. This is an elite rebellion.
And there's one part of this, the language, in 16:3 ends with, "So why do you lift yourselves up above Adonai's assembly?"
Yeah.
Did Moses and Aaron lift themselves up above the assembly?
God seems to have been doing it.
Yeah. That was God's design. It wasn't theirs. Matter of fact, and we see later on, quite to the contrary, Moses and Aaron interceded on the behalf of Israel repeatedly. Moses did at the golden calf incident. He did at the spies incident. And once again here, he took out the 250 he took out Korah and his family.
Mm-hmm.
Then he took out the 250 with the fire pans. And then a plague was rolling through Israel. And if it hadn't have been for Moses and Aaron's intercession, it would have wiped them all out.
Mm-hmm.
How do you get to the point that you say, why are you lifting yourselves up? And
I think somebody that is greedily watching at the edge and coveting. Actually, this is covetousness. This is the 10th commandment.
Yeah. Okay.
Coveting that position, that power, that like, oh, everybody is looking at this guy. Everybody's following what this guy wants to do. I want to be that guy. I'm coveting that position. When you're corrupting your brain, there's a reason it's in the 10 Commandments. When you're corrupting your brain like that, you will talk yourself into anything.
Okay, that's a good point. Yeah, because allowing that covetousness to take hold actually does corrupt your thinking.
Yeah. You start to get like the bitter is, oh, well, why are they doing? Oh, look at this. Look at them, stumbling along and all that, look at the, that kind of thing. You get a contemptuous thing getting, happening.
How does that foster itself in our lives today? Do we still have that going on?
Oh, yeah, quite a bit.
I'm sitting here trying to think of examples because, yes, I'm absolutely certain it's going on, but I think that would help people if we could identify some real, true examples of it. And right now, the only thing I can think of is, well, we look around and we're trying to live a life of righteousness, but the world's just doing whatever they darn well please, and they're doing okay.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no reason we shouldn't join them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because we want what they have.
Mm-hmm. When
exactly the opposite should be what's happening.
Yeah. I think you see it too. You see it, I don't know that I want to go down this road really terribly far, but, you see it politically too, where you've got people on the sidelines, or in the media or wherever they are wanting that power. They're wanting, their way to be the way, then using the platform and the power that they already have to undercut and to sow division and to sow chaos, basically. We're unfortunately seeing that to a certain extent quite a lot in the last little while.
Interesting enough, I think you hit on something, and I'm with you. I don't want to go terribly far down this road. But Korah didn't mention how we could do this job better.
Mm-hmm.
He just said, who are you to lift yourself up? We're holy too. Now, he wasn't wrong. They were holy.
Yeah.
But they weren't in the same position. And today, politically, not just today, it's been long enough, I don't remember how long it's been.
Mm-hmm.
You very rarely see positive, hey, this is how I'm going to fix this situation. All you see is, well, they're doing it wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good point.
And that's what Korah didn't have any solutions to problems. He just wanted a piece of that.
Yeah.
And who do you think you are?
Yeah.
Well, God showed them who they thought they were. And he did so in a way that a whole lot of people died. And interesting enough, okay, Moses is standing there, he's going, okay, if these guys die a normal death, then it's on me.
God's not with me, yeah. I'm just another dude.
But if God does something that he's never done before, this is of him. And he opened up the earth and it swallowed the people. And Israel still blamed Moses for it.
Yeah, that's rather amazing. The next morning, they were all like back to murmuring again.
How many miracles of God did they need to see
Yeah.
to trust him? But are we so much different today?
Well, probably not. It's easier to sit here and read it and go, okay, well, that was that. But then if we see, it's kind of funny. We call, a tornado or something like that an act of God. It's an insurance term, actually. But we see things like that happening, and we not only don't think about, okay, is this random versus is this God's hand? We immediately discount the notion that it is God's hand.
Yeah. I grew up in central Kansas, one end of Tornado Alley, and then later in life I moved to Oklahoma City area, the beginning of Tornado Alley, and a buddy of mine he was manager at a gas station, and the owners had told him, if there's a tornado that hits, you go inside the walk-in cooler and you get all the employees inside the walk-in cooler. That's where you need to ride out a tornado. And he remembered thinking that in his orientation that didn't make a whole lot of sense. And he happened to be pulling up to the gas station to take care of business when the tornado was literally coming down the street. He ran inside, hit the kill switch that shut off all the fuel flow and shut off all the power to the pumps, grabbed the 3 employees, shoved them in the back room that once upon a time had been a restroom, so it was a block wall room. And as he closed the door behind him, the tornado ripped the door out of his hand. When the tornado was said and was gone, the only part of the building that was standing was this little bitty room that they were in.
Yeah.
The walk-in cooler that they were supposed to go in was 6 blocks away. Is a tornado a random act? Quite possibly.
Yeah, probably.
Can the hand of God be in the midst of that?
Yeah.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
Anybody that's lived around the tornadoes, those kind of stories are.
Yeah, everybody has them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and there is a little bit of a difference here as opposed to looking for God's hand in various events that could be random. Here you have Moses actually saying, hey, if this is not from God, or if I'm not from God, nothing's going to happen. But if there is, God's going to do something tremendous right now. And then the earth opens up. I mean,
it's kind of hard to deny that.
Right. There's a little bit of a cause and effect you would jump to maybe that's going on there.
You don't have to look for the hand of God in that. It's obvious. It's there. Yet the same people that watched everything that happened in Egypt, that watched what happened at the Red Sea, that watched what happened at Mount Sinai, stood there, listened to Moses, watched this happen, and did not recognize the hand of God.
Yeah.
It's baffling to me. But it's also baffling when we go through our daily lives and people deny the hand of God.
Mm-hmm.
I know we would not still be in business if it was not for the hand of God. Mm-hmm. It's just amazing watching him work. I'm good at what I do, but I'm not that good. God has definitely played a part in it. Well, there's something here that there's a responsibility that goes with that position of Moses and Aaron's.
Yeah.
It's talked about in verse 18, or excuse me, chapter 18,
Okay.
beginning in verse 1. In this responsibility, I don't know if it's quite appropriate. My understanding is that when you accept a position of leadership in a congregation, you're accepting this responsibility because you're serving, whether you're of the lineage or not, you're serving as the Kohanim for that group. I think that this extends to the father of a family as well, because he is in the position of priest for that family. I understand that is arguable, but this says that Adonai said to Aharon, you, your sons, and your father's family line will be responsible for anything that goes wrong in the sanctuary. You and your sons with you will be responsible for anything wrong in your service as Kohanim. Well, this goes to the book of James, who talks about the teachers will be held to a different level of responsibility. It's not just what they do wrong in their service. My understanding of that first sentence is, as Israel comes to the sanctuary and they do things wrong, and I wish I had done some research before we started recording to give the verses for this, but the high priest bears that responsibility. And anytime you accept leadership, you do not have authority without responsibility. And it doesn't seem that Korah was ready to accept that.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a general leadership principle. Like there's a saying, I read the other day, and it was attributed to Sisao, but I don't know if it was really him, but it says the fish rots from the head. So, if you have the rot that's in your leadership will go from there throughout your organization, and as it goes down, it'll get worse. Because they are, like when the leadership is not holding to a higher than normal standard and visibly doing so, that means that the people that are looking up to them for leadership are going to themselves push it.
Right.
It's like, and at each level, you're going to have a greater amount of pushing it in that direction. So you want to lead to the greater good rather than to, the lower bad, let's say, or the lower, but you know what I mean, so it's like what you do as a leader has tremendous impact, and your slippage as a leader can have tremendous impact on other people in that same area.
So just good enough can be a very dangerous principle when you're in a leadership position.
Yeah. Because you're, just occurred to me, you're defining what is good in your society or in your organization. You're defining the standard, especially when you're at the very top, you're defining the standard. So if your standard's up here, well, people, maybe around here or something like that, if your standard is way down here, well, nobody else is going to go higher than that, Like, they're going to shoot for that, and then they might miss that and go lower. That's sort of how it happens.
Yeah, and it's interesting when you see God's principles played out in life. I mean, Paul Harvey talked about, he said, yes, I believe in God. I believe that the Bible is the Word of God. But if you don't, this is the greatest handbook for the human body ever written. I love quoting Paul Harvey. He was a wonderful man, full of wisdom.
Notice too here how the Bible sometimes says things in ways that can cause us to, in our modern sense, It's weird, let me put it that way. But then when you actually think about it, it makes perfect sense, and it makes sense for a larger thing. So we just talked about leadership and all that. And the way it's written here in the King James is, thou and thy sons and thy father's house with thee shall bear the iniquity of the sanctuary. And it's like, okay, you're going to be the whipping boy of all of this. You can take it wrong that way, like if you don't think about it.
Yes.
But if you do think about it, then you start to realize, well, wait a minute. Yeah. Leadership has their responsibility. They set the standards. They set, all these. And so, and furthermore, if a leader behaves in that way, or it behaves as if they do have that responsibility, then they're going to hold themselves to a higher standard, and then things work out, much better than if they don't.
Well, and I think Aaron proved himself here when the plague was going through. He proved that he was worthy of this responsibility.
Yeah.
Him and his sons took the incense, and they raced out and got between the living and the dead and offered atonement for Israel on the spot.
Yeah.
And that's what leadership does.
Yeah.
They recognize that these people aren't truly responsible. That doesn't completely absolve them, but let's give them a chance.
Well, maybe a better way of saying it is that a leader takes the responsibility and steps up, in order to protect their community, protect their society, that.
We don't see anybody when Aaron and his sons were running out there to stop the plague going, "Who do you think you are?
Right.
Taking all this on yourself."
No.
I just wish that we could learn this lesson and learn to apply it in our everyday lives. And be able to learn to support the leadership that God puts in place.
Mm-hmm.
And I chose those words specifically because so many times leadership is self-appointed. But I also have to check myself.
Mm-hmm.
Because depending upon where you were in Israel, it was a large crowd. That seems to be what they were accusing Moses of.
Mm-hmm.
He was he put himself up here and he's doing all these things. And so if we see someone in leadership and you see the hand of God working with them, then if we want to say that those leaders were self-appointed, maybe we should take pause and spend some prayer time and try and hear from God on this side of sticking our foot in our mouth.
Mm-hmm. And at the same time, do be aware of people that are self-appointed, that are power hungry,
They're out
that
there.
want the position because they want the glory, as opposed to they feel like they can handle the responsibility.
First thing that comes to mind is, you can turn on the TV and start floating through the evangelist on the TV and sort it out. But I'd still proceed with caution in that direction, because some of them are there because God put them there.
Yeah.
Even some of them that I wince at when I hear them, God uses, so who am I to...
Right.
Interesting here as well, it talks about the tithe being given to the Levi
Yeah.
in 1821. and that it's a permanent regulation through our generations.
Mm-hmm.
When we don't really know who the Levites are anymore, how do we deal with that?
Well, your classic answer to that, I mean, is the church, whatever church you're part of.
The people doing the job of the Levi, the person standing in that office for you.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know that that's wrong. I don't know that that's right.
Yeah.
But maybe for another time, this is just one of the tithes it's talking about, though.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't the tithe that's supposed to take you to the feast.
No.
This isn't the tithe for the widows and orphans.
Mm-hmm.
This is the tithe talked about in the covenant that was established at Jacob's ladder between Jacob and God, that if you will be my God, I will give you a tithe of everything.
Yeah.
And
this also is, I mean, the tithe goes to the Levites. The Levites themselves tithe to the priesthood.
Yes, absolutely.
Which is interesting. It's they're not exempt from the need to tithe. Let's say they have to do it as well. Of course, then presumably the priesthood is, because it doesn't go any further after that.
I want to. Most religious organizations continue that practice.
Mm-hmm.
If you're licensed with a particular organization, they expect you to tithe off of your ministry to them, and that's the one part of the Old Testament that everybody thinks still applies. I'll leave that there lest I talk ill of someone.
Well, there's a tithing that needs to happen, and it needs to support those people that are put in place by God to support the community. Let's say they support the community by attending to the tabernacle, which is the center point of their community and the center point of their society and their social life, really, when you include the feasts and Sabbaths and all those kinds of things. And so, that needs to be supported. And there's a certain extent to which that's still true.
Yes.
Got
to keep the lights on.
You got to keep the lights on. And you have to have the thing which holds your community together, the glue that runs between you all, needs to be well funded. Like,
yeah,
it can't do it without any funding.
Right. And that was one of my challenges for years, was how do I move forward in ministry without making it a business? And I came to the conclusion that if I needed to continue, God would provide. And so this is the extent of my ministry these days. But I got a hunch he's got something on the horizon.
Yeah. Yeah, he does. He has, I think, a place for everyone to be. And honestly, we should seek that out honestly and diligently, and whatever that place is, because we're not all Moses.
Right.
We could be Levites, or we could be Gadites, or we could be just about anybody, because every part of society is important for the full functioning of the society. Even the garbage collectors.
Absolutely.
Without them, the place would be junked up real quick. So find your calling, whatever that is, and do it as unto the Lord, as it says in the New Testament. See you next week. Thank you all.